Welcome everyone to the EED webinar number 15. It is October 12th on Wednesday, October 12th, 2021, or it's Tuesday actually, sorry. And the theme today is activating your power centers. So we have a whole network of centers in our body for creativity, strengths, powers, functions, and it all works like an intelligent network. So this is what we're looking at today, is what are the various body centers, what is their function, their particular strength, and how do they coordinate together? When we get them aligned and coordinated together, that opens up what you could call super channels of wisdom, drive, creativity, and we are in more healthy alignment within ourselves, and then we can be in more healthy action when we are acting out in the world. So I want to say, so for those watching the recording, also those on the webinar here attending, the webinars introduce the basic concepts that Emergent Essence Dynamics teaches in its courses. So you get the basic concepts, the philosophies, and then the courses are where you learn all the techniques and where you get the practice and the supervision to put all the concepts into practice. All right, so I just want to make sure that everyone knows that. You will get some basic tools that you can walk away with in the webinar always, that you can practice on your own. And then if you want more, come visit the website or contact us. And we do have courses coming up now in November. We will start a new series of courses in November and December for Module 1. We just finished test running a new module, Module 4, called Transmuting Essence. And that's going to be released publicly in the spring. So now you'll have modules 1, 2, 3, 4, the conflict course and facilitating team dynamics. So there is plenty to do and plenty to learn with EED. So to get started, we're focusing on our network of body centers. So what does that mean? An overview of the strength and function of the various body centers and where they're located, and the particular intelligence that each body center has, because our brain, we know, has intelligence, but we have other centers of intelligence as well. You know, you have your heart intelligence, your gut intelligence, but there's even more than that, all right? So we're going to look at some simple ways to activate those centers and start aligning them together, and then to also do some troubleshooting to look at where might energies be, or these centers be competing, or the energies are over-dominating or being underused, and how to unblock that and restore some flow. Does anyone have any comments or questions here, or what's fascinating to you about what we're going to look at? Or what brought you in? I'm always welcoming your questions to help also guide me and make this more relevant and practical for you, for those of you attending live in the webinar. And that's the advantage of attending live, is you get to ask your questions. So just give me a thumbs up if there's if it's all good. Okay, great. So to be very brief, what is EED? What does it do? It's Emergent Essence Dynamics. It's we're looking at what are the fundamental patterns and processes of human behavior and transformation. And what I'm giving you is a universal model that captures those basic patterns of transformation. So this applies to coaching, leadership, mediation, facilitation, healing, personal growth, a whole gamut of areas. And these are natural processes. These are naturally proven. If you go out and it's all based on the way nature works. So what we've done is I've done the work, I've captured the patterns, and then I'm giving it to you, and you can apply it. There's three basic things we're focusing on. We're focusing on building resilience and restoring autonomy. That is the basic foundation for transformation. If there is no resilience in the change process, nothing will change, because then everything will be based upon primary patterns that are rigid and based on fear, which is going to keep things rigid. So we need to be resilient so that we are able to be more receptive, open up, and be flexible and fluid. That is the foundation for transformation. Then we're looking at what are the actions and behaviors and the energy of the person or the group so that we can get to know what is driving their patterns. And then we can start looking at their unique patterns of change. What are the basic growth patterns, and what's the creative process that is trying to emerge? So we're looking at patterns that are emerging from a resilient place, and everything is centralized back into source, where we are feeling permanent, timeless, and infinitely aware. And so that change is not based on fear, but it is based upon resilience and a feeling of flexibility and invincibility. Any questions or comments there? Okay, so what we're looking at then is the resilience that is within each body center and the dynamics they have with each other, all right? So when I said when everything is, we need to get into alignment on our various levels of self. So we have three main levels. We have our body, we have our emotions, and we have our thoughts. Three basic levels. If we are congruent, meaning what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling and what I'm saying and doing and acting are all in line, then I'm in a congruent state of being, and therefore I can then open a channel up to my essence, my higher wisdom, and then I can access source. Let's call it the higher self, divine wisdom, or just simply being in touch with what is most resilient within me, what is most permanent and timeless. If I'm cut off from my essence or source, then I'm acting from emptiness, disconnect, fear, ego. We'll look at that later in the webinar. And then we're going to activate fear-based patterns, which are rigid, pre-programmed, all based upon previous, let's say, fears and traumas in our past. It doesn't mean that you have to be brutally traumatized. It just means whenever you've gotten fallen down, cut, bruised, discouraged, that we store back as, okay, never again. I won't do that again. I'm going to avoid that. We fear it. So then we create patterns to work around that and to not make that happen again. What that does is that breaks down our free will. We're then pre-programming ourselves to go on automated response. But when we are connected to our source and essence, we can bypass those automated response. We can be more present and fluid with our current reality and act with resilience and fluidity. Does that raise any questions or comments? Or I see you nodding, Alina, just anything to say there on that?
I was just relating.
Okay.
With whatever you mentioned. In the last 2 years, I've been actually working a lot in increasing my coaching competencies, and in whatever body of coaching I've been doing, I've been also integrating whatever I got from Emergent Essence Dynamics, and it was such nicely, integrating with everything. And I had always this perspective to whatever I've been receiving or doing. So it's something that really resonates with me. And today I even feel I felt the need to be here.
Okay. Yeah, to get a good refresher on this, yeah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in all the EED processes, we're counterbalancing what we're aware of and what we're experiencing so that we are lining up thoughts and emotions and physicality. Thoughts, words, actions, everything is in line. If there is an incongruency or a disconnect, right, then we're cutting ourselves off from essence, and then something's trying to dominate, either a feeling, an action, a thought, and it's usually driven by the fear or the reactive patterns. When we can then re-spark, let's say, the resilience, calm the person down, and start to line up the thoughts, they can make a choice. So what do you want to line up with? The thought, the emotion, or the action, or the word, right? So they can choose. All of it can be true, but choose one and have a full alignment there. Then they're going to open up to their deeper essence. And there's where we're going to get our raw creativity. We're not going to get it from our known thoughts and feelings and actions and outside stimulus. That's just known information. And when we look at the body centers, the brain is what's going to organize that into new combinations, but it's never new information. The new raw creativity is channeled through essence, source. All right, that's where we're going to get the new and raw information. So therefore, this is why it's, say, important to meditate or to calm down, relax. But it doesn't mean you have to be in a Zen state. It means you need to be in an aligned state. You can be jogging and running really fast, but aligning your thoughts, your energies, your emotions, and your body, you're then able to channel back into your creativity and essence. And I'm talking from experience because I'm originally a concert pianist, composer, writer, actor. I had to go into these channeling states in order to get the raw creativity. And it's always through alignment and congruency that you get there. So there is no new information at the mental level. We always think I got to think a creative thought. No, you're going to organize something in a creative way, but it's not going to be a new creative thought. Now, where are you going to get the creativity from? You can draw it up from the body wisdom, because the body is going to draw up from source and essence. You can draw in signals from source or inspirations. That's what inspiration means, is to breathe in life or to breathe in creativity. You can take it in from the stimulus from your surroundings, but then it's got to cycle through congruently your thoughts, emotions, and your body. Because if your thoughts are going to reject it, if your emotions are going to reject it, or your body's going to reject it, you're not really taking in the stimulus. So when you are in an aligned and congruent space, you're able to welcome all new information. You're able to be fascinated with it, be affected by it, absorb it, then get to know it, connect with it. Then you can process it later. So the very first thing we teach in Emergent Essence Dynamics is how to take in information, suspend the judgment so you can truly listen to it, take it in, and then figure out what to do with it in a creative way, as opposed to prejudging and limiting ourselves. This is what we call a closed bubble, is when you are closing yourself off to your environment, your stimuli, and you're prejudging, and you're only filtering through things that are acceptable according to what? A predetermined mindset or reality. You'll get nothing new. You're only going to get more of the same. You're creating an echo chamber in your closed bubble. When you open it, you're open to new creative signals to come in from the body, from source, and from your environment around you. And when I say body, that also means could be from earth energies as well. Any comments there before I move on to the next slide, because we'll look at each body center in particular. Comments, questions there? This is just basic alignment and how to bring channel in raw creativity. Okay, good. I get to take a breath. All right, here we go. Now, this is the other thing I wanted to say before we move on, is every moment is a new moment. It's an opportunity to channel something in from source. What that means is each moment is not the same as the last. We have an illusion that I'm always the same and always the same. But what we're really doing is we're flashing in and out of existence, collapsing back to source and reconstituting from source, back from source. So it's like a film. We're flashing in and out of existence, so to speak. So it's in those gaps in between that we have the opportunity to change and transform. That's a way to think about it. So let that sink in. And now let's look at the body centers. So how are we doing for time? Very good. Here's some main body centers. We have the brain, the heart, and the gut. And if anyone has done studies on the Enneagram, these are your three main centers where your main Enneagram types come from. The Enneagram types of 5, 6, and 7 come from the brain. 2, 3, and 4 come from the heart center, and 8, 9, and 1 come from the lower body center. So let's look at the heart here. A lot of people speak of the heart right now. Got to be heart-based, heart-based. Well, what this is the heart is looking after relationships and connection. It is all about being in fluid connection with like one-on-one relationships with everyone, all right? And it's also, in EED, we talk about the games that we play. We have our games, and then those where we're in opposition with others or the world, then those games can start to reconcile into a dream state, and then it can dissolve into source. So the kinds of games the heart is going to play is validation games. Do I exist? Do you acknowledge me? Do you recognize me? This is where it wants to create connection in order to validate its own existence. That can be on the game level. At source, it's really just about unconditional love, all right? So again, in the next slide, I'll show you the difference between what's game and dream, or what's being connected to source and disconnected. Disconnect is coming from ego, connected is coming from essence, all right? The gut is going to look after our drive, our mobility, our drive for power and action. So it's going to be concerned with the environment and managing that environment, all right? The brain is going to look after self-preservation. It's going to control fear, and it's going to be managing safety and danger. So the brain and the gut can work together. The brain can scan where is it safe or dangerous to be, and the gut is going to move us there or protect the safe space, all right? So this is our power center. This is where we use our sword to protect and defend, all right, and manage our environment, our community. The brain is going to assess and categorize and organize and be logical, all right? And then the heart is going to open the boundaries and create the relationship. The gut will close the boundaries or protect the boundaries. The head is going to look at which boundaries are appropriate and inappropriate. So you see how all three of these can already work together. It's just as main body centers, and there are many more. But that actually is what the Enneagram is looking after. These three main functions. And by the way, I think it's in December, I'm going to do a webinar on the Enneagram, especially how EED and the Enneagram work together. Any comments here? Any insights, comments, questions? I'm always taking pause for comments and questions. Otherwise, just show me a thumbs up or something. There's also that great, thank you. Okay, now there are other centers to look at. We have our center of creativity. This will be the groin. This will be our center of desire and creativity. We also have our center for expression, the throat, the voice, right? These can also be paired up. So the creative fire can move through all the centers. It can be expressed through the voice, but it can also go out of control if it's disconnected. It can fall into lust and overindulgence and over desire, right? So it needs to be kept in check and balanced, all right? We also have a lower center of our core vitality and movement, mobility. It's again related to the gut, but this is more about the life force that moves through us, right? And the mobility of that life force. Then we have our connection to earth and our connection to our highest awareness or our meta awareness. You could call it spirit or sky. So this is going to give us earthiness, rootedness, and also a connection to, let's say, our history. It's a different way of connecting to the environment. It's more like our ancestry, so to speak. And this will be the highest inspirations, spiritual aspirations, let's say, or our highest awareness. What we do also teaches meta awareness is how to, we have 8 levels of awareness, and this would be your highest level, where it's like an omnipresence that you can cultivate within yourself. So it's like your diamond awareness. Now, these can all get, they'll all have their individual function, and they can flow through one another, and they work together. Then there is one other center, which is the solar plexus, which is a center of balance and unity. So in a way, you can have the spirit, the earth, and the solar plexus work together as almost like transpersonal centers. Then you have your core creativity, your core vitality, your power, your drive, your fluidity of relationship, your self-expression, and your self-assessment or your preservation. How is that looking all together? What is interesting, or what feels new here, or old, or obvious? Just any. Again, I'm leaving it open for questions, comments here. Anything to say? What is important then is to know the purity of energies. Because what can happen is one center can start to dominate over the other. It can dominate over other centers. It can undermine other centers, or centers can start competing. For example, one common battle is between the heart and the gut. So if we're biased towards the heart, we're going to want to be open, fluid, vulnerable, generous, all accepting. And so then we're being like open borders, open boundaries. And then we want to always be kind, and we always want to be nice, because why? We're playing a game of validation. We always want to be recognized. But then the downside to that is we might feel like we're being taken advantage of, or that we're being treated like a doormat, we're not being respected enough. And then we might get bitter and cynical and start developing hatred. And then we might think, oh, but I can't have hatred. That's cruel. I can't be cruel. I must be nice. I must be a nice, good person. I must have virtue. So then we start playing these virtue games. But all the while, we're ignoring this power center because we believe that it is cruel, because it has no problem cutting off a connection in order to be safe or to protect. It also will not be vulnerable, because its idea is to protect, it is to dominate, it is to take action. It is not about being open and vulnerable. That's the heart's job. So if you get the two working together, each has a strength. The gut is able to move, it's able to protect, it's able to be strong, it's able to manage space, it's able to hold boundaries at a moment's notice. It is immediate. And then the heart can come in and it can start to open the space. Bring in the brain, and it can start scanning for the safety and the danger. It can say, aha, watch out for that. The stomach can move in. The heart doesn't have to close. It's that the stomach will stop. It'll defend. It'll protect. All right. We do not have to close the heart. That is the illusion, that we think we need to close the heart. When the heart starts closing, it's trying to imitate the gut. Does that make sense what I'm saying? The heart is trying to imitate the gut when it closes, because it's stopping its own flow. When it stops its own flow, it becomes unhealthy. It builds a wall around it. All right. Or it sours itself. It festers. And this is where you've got these people that are desperately trying to be nice all the time, but they're not treated so well. They feel under-recognized. They feel victimized. And then they become cruel, bitter, biting. And they become selectively nice because they're not feeling respected. They're expecting to be respected first. They won't send the respect out first because they're constantly trying to protect themselves with these closed hearts, pretending that it's open. You see how that becomes a game. It becomes a validation game, and it becomes a very bitter and sour validation game. Why? Because they're cutting off the ability to use the sword. And in fact, the sword is getting so demonized now. It's they're trying to cut out the sword. This is what I'm noticing in society right now. They're trying to cut out the sword. It's not being used. It's souring the heart. Does anybody agree or disagree to what I'm saying here? Or did you see observations like this? Anyone? Or give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. It's okay. What do we got here?
You see exaggerations on every, on the hard side, on the word side, so on both sides.
Yeah, I'm saying yes, agree, especially in the work environment. Yeah, this is where victim politics is coming from. This battle between the heart and the sword, let's say, the gut power. The gut power is getting so demonized, it's being called toxic masculinity, and the heart power is becoming too feminized, and it's creating a battle of the sexes, and it's really dividing these together. And then what is it doing? It's splitting the brain. The brain doesn't know which one to favor. Okay. And it's not the brain's job. The brain's job is just to look at what's safe, what's dangerous, and then it's processing information together. It's saying 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 2 = 4, so it can come up with strategies, plans and strategies. And then it can start channeling in higher vision and dreams from the upper centers. And then it can send out ideas to voice, right? That's what the brain is looking after. The heart can start to voice its recognition and love in relationship, right? And so can the gut, right? The gut can say, no, you stay there. Boundaries, right? And if they're not in direct communication with each other, the heart says, oh, but don't be so cruel, don't be so mean. And the gut is saying, don't be so stupid and vulnerable, right? And trusting and naive, right? So the heart needs to be open, vulnerable, and naive and trusting, but it can't manage the front door. That's the gut's job. It's the bouncer, okay? Once you're let in the door, then the heart says, welcome to my home. You have free access. Do you understand? There's a time and a place. Is this making sense? Right? And it's all getting mixed up. We're demonizing, or we are demonizing certain centers, or certain centers are demonizing each other, right? And yeah, Kirsten's saying, yeah, this becomes exhausting. It is exhausting. You can't, look, your heart is going to get so exhausted trying to manage the front door, because it's going to say, I'm supposed to let everyone in, but certain people are taking advantage of me, and it's so exhausting, and I don't know how to say no. I'm exhausting myself. Maybe I should just close up altogether and wither and die, wither away, right? That's called closing the heart or shriveling it up. If you do trust the bouncer on the team to manage the front door, trust the upper manager of the head who can say, hey, I recognize that one, I recognize that, I recognize that. That's possible danger, okay? The gut can then test it out, right? And the heart can say, well, wait, give them a chance. So that they can all work together, all right? Is what I'm saying. Then we've got the creativity and the vitality, and they can work together. So there's a difference between sending life force, basic vitality and life force throughout our system. That's like clean, fresh air, nutrients, right? The creative fire is the desire. This is what's going to drive the action. To see how the fire is underneath the sword. The sword is what's going to move through the environment. The vitality is the sort of the fuel behind the fuel. The desire is the fuel to move forward, and the vitality is the benzene behind that. Does that make sense? Or the wind, let's say the wind beneath the wings, okay? Then these three are our lower centers. This is what connects us to Earth, where we have vitality, nutrients, fire, desire, movement, mobility, and power. That's what allows us to run through the jungle, okay? And to eat and to work with our hands and to work in the dirt, all right? Then we have our higher aspirations. So the solar plexus is the dividing line, let's say, the unifier, the balancer. Then we have fluidity of relationship, connection, love, validation. Then we have creative or communication, expression. Then we have our logic, we have our thought patterns, and then we have our highest aspirations and spirituality and inspirations, right? Our divinity, so to speak. Now, what we can do is we can counterbalance that, our highest divinity, with our most basic connection to Earth. We can have our best logic and vision and inspirations that are coming in balanced with our basic rootedness and core vitality. We can have our creativity balanced with our expression, and our voice can be creative. We can have our relationships balanced with security and power. And all of that then is balanced in the solar plexus, which is neutral. And that is a natural portal into our essence, which I'll show you next. What do we mean by essence and source? So you can counterbalance these centers together, but then you can also take the strength of one center and run it through our whole body. Like, if I'm overusing my power center and I need to start to get some more heart energy going through my system, so then I can find out what is the main quality of the heart, the main strength or quality of it. What is the physical sensation of that energy? Meaning, what is most enjoyable about that strength or energy, right? And then, of course, you've got the location. I can start to circulate that throughout my body. So I can go circulate it down to my feet, up to my head, and then I can further extend it outside the body to the earth and into the sky, so that I've got a free flow of energy in connection with the world around me. That's why we go earth, sky, right? It gives you a context. The image that comes up is like to be a tree trunk with branches and roots, and you've got that heart energy flowing all through it. What you're doing is you're circulating a particular strength, and it's self-regulatory, and it keeps it clean and pure, meaning it's going to let go of toxins, fears, hang-ups. It's going to take in pure vitality. It's going to be generous. It's going to give its inspirations or outspirations, if you want to call it, and then it's going to receive in new creativities and wisdoms and circulate. You can do that with each of these centers and get to know the pure strengths. Now, in the modules, we work with this extensively throughout all 4 modules. In module 1, it's basically how do you get to an essential quality with its sensation and body center and start circulating that through the body and activating it. We call that the vertical loop. And then how do you start sharing that energy in relationship? And this shifts how you are in relationship to things around you, because then you are coming from a more grounded, more resilient, more fluid and adaptable place, as opposed to being run by fear and disconnect or emptiness. So this is something you can do. You can just meditate on any of these centers and find out what is the core function, strength, or intelligence here. What am I enjoying in that? How does that contribute to my well-being? What is the sensation? And then start to circulate that through the body and see how it affects the entire system. Comments, questions here on how to work with the centers. You'll notice that when you're contacting an energy, you can charge it up, and then it's going to want to release. Usually it's going to want to share or radiate or be generous or want to make a contribution. There's where the creativity is coming in. There's where you get the creative ideas. So you can start focusing on a center, charge it up, and see what it wants to express, share, or contribute. And there's where we're going to get some raw creativity. And that is a natural cycle of tension and release, tension and release. This is how energy works. We draw energy in, it builds up, and then it wants to radiate out. We relax, we become receptive, and then we start generating the energy back in. It builds up, and then it discharges. And that is a constant that's happening. If we are not allowing ourselves to charge up, then we're in a constant state of receptivity and depletion. If we are not allowing energy to discharge, then we are under stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. Is that making sense? So we need to circulate our energy. Think of music. You'll have major chords and then dissonant chords, consonants, dissonance, right? And the dissonance is the contrast for the consonants to happen. The dissonance creates that explosion, that release. Then we have the consonant chord and we relax into it. We feel wonderful, but then we get bored. We need to create a little bit of trouble, start to mix things up, and then create some friction. And then boom, it releases again. And this is how our relationships work. Also through charge, discharge. This is why we have games. We can create friction with each other, play the games, have the conflict. But if we're coming from a disconnected place, the conflict will be oppositional, competitive, and harmful. If we are in a resilient place, connected to source, we're allowing the game to play. We understand that friction is necessary. We use the friction to learn. So our two opposing ends or our two opponents in the conflict actually are complementary. That's what we mean by when we're in a dream state. I don't have the slide here to show you the difference between game and dream, but it's in other webinars. We talk about that a lot. So it's like hot and cold will work together to create a whole range of temperatures instead of battling for the hot world or battling for the cold world and demonizing each other. So division and demonization gives us a much more fragmented and small reality. And this can happen internally and externally, this fragmentation. Comments or questions? How are we doing here? Wow. Going through a lot of information. Okay, I talked about connect and disconnect. So we want to connect our energies to essence. Essence is a place of timelessness, a sense of permanence. This is where I cannot be destroyed. It's like, say, the consciousness that lives on and beyond. It's the observer, the thinker of the thinker. All right, so that part of yourself that's able to observe itself to get a sort of a meta view, or the part that feels infinitely aware, or the part that feels it can move on and beyond. To put it simply, what feels permanent and timeless within me? What is something nobody can ever take away? That's how I can start to get a sense of my own essence or source. And when we start to access that, we'll feel like there's no place to go, nothing to do, nothing to be, and we're in a place of calm. Now, we don't live in essence world, but that's where we draw our energies from. And then they'll want to express. We live in a world where we want to move and express, all right? We want to take action. So essence can express itself in two ways, what we call the resilient self or the pathetic self. And I call it the pathetic self for a reason, because it's pathos, meaning it's addicted to drama. It's also self-indulgent, poor me, and pathology. It's addicted to strategy, right? Constantly strategizing. So the only reason is because it is disconnected from source or essence. Both want to take action, but one is connected and one is disconnected. Therefore, the pathetic self has to try to imitate and reproduce essence. Therefore, it feels, in a way, abandoned. It feels like it's got no foundation. It's got to control everything, and it's got to validate itself so that it will survive. And it's trying to return to essence. It's trying to plug in to an external source. So it's always asking itself, am I okay? Am I okay? Am I okay? Because it's feeling the rub of that disconnect, that gap, that feeling of separation, all right? And it's trying to return to or plug into some kind of a source so it can relax and feel safe and secure. So it's always going to play these games of validation and control. So like I said before, our body centers may be dominated by a pathetic self, a sense of disconnect. So it's going to try to control its whole internal system. It's going to try and validate itself by dominating the internal system. It's going to start getting competitive with all the other centers, all right? And it's going to want to take the predominant action. Why? Because it doesn't feel okay and it doesn't trust the other centers. If we move it over to the resilient self, okay, so what we learn in module 1 is how to recognize when a pathetic self comes up. We don't indulge in it. We move over to the resilient self where we plug the energy back into essence. So there's this free flow of energy where we can take action from a feeling of thriving. I am okay. And you can do this. You can ask yourself, okay, pathetic self comes up. It says, oh my God, look at all the cracks in the wall. Don't know what to do. I don't feel safe. I don't feel secure. All right. So despite all of that, despite all the threats around you, what does feel okay? And you'll find something. You'll find a spark of something. Wow. I'm worried about my finances. I'm worried about my marriage. I'm worried about my kids. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that. I'm worried about the diseases, and I'm worried about the doctors and the health system and this and the world and the news. Well, what does feel okay? I can breathe. Oh, but that's insignificant. No, no, no. It is significant. How is it to simply breathe? How does that feed your well-being? How are you okay? What are you enjoying in that okayness? Despite the rest, just focus on what's okay right now. That's going to start plugging you into some resilience. Then you can ask, what feels permanent and timeless here within me? Then say, now from that resilient place, now what is it like to look at the world around me? You will have a different perspective, a different view, and you will have different creative ideas, right? And the more you exercise that, the more you convert over to the resilient self, you can take action from a place of thriving. What does that mean? I take action because I can, not because I must or else, all right? You will be less driven by fear when you can reconcile with yourself with your own resilient self, all right? Then the two can start working together, where the pathetic self can say, look, here's a problem. Move it over to the resilient self and say, all right, I can address the problem from resilience. Because if we address it from the pathetic self, it's going to be desperate, fearful, disconnected, and we will not make lucid, creative, or smart decisions. We will make decisions based upon previous trauma, because all it's doing, it's running the rat wheel of what was the trauma before? What am I avoiding? What am I avoiding? Never again, never again, never again, never again, never again. And it's always running from the tiger. And then everything looks like a tiger. How are you guys doing with this?
Yeah, that means at any moment we should be aware whether we are in a pathetic self or in a resilient self, and use both as resources.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not saying we eliminate pathetic self. It's got a use and a function, and we spend a lot of time in module 2 investigating what that is. How do pathetic selves function and work? Well, what's happening is if we are constantly bombarded with fear and threat, we get exhausted, beaten down, and we forget about our ability to be resilient.
Yeah.
And what we fail to realize is the resilience is always there. It's never gone away. Because in fact, the pathetic self doesn't know that it's using resilience to run and try to take action and try to plug in. It's using the energy of the resilient self. It doesn't realize that. That's why you ask, despite all, how am I okay? And then you can start to plug that in to various body centers and start to circulate energy in specialized ways, all right? You can even start communicating between body centers. We do this in module 4. We do it a little bit in the conflict course, but in module 4, where you can say, all right, so what is the strength of one center? And what is that giving to the other center? You can calm the other center down enough that it can receive that energy and be charged up by that energy. What is it absorbing? What's being created in that center? How is that mixing with its natural energy? And then what is it inspired to give back? And we create a flow of give and receive between centers. This builds the bridge, so they start coordinating and working together. And they start being in a cooperative place. Instead of them playing this oppositional game with each other, they start building a bridge. And they start being in a fluid dream state between each other. And that's ultimately what we're working towards, is to create a flow between all body centers, and we're able to freely migrate our center of consciousness throughout all of it. And in fact, get all of them working together, and that creates a super consciousness. That's why I say, when they align and they flow, it opens up a super channel of creativity, wisdom, drive, because then you become extremely present and you have extreme presence. And then you are in a much more creative and fluid relationship with yourself, with others, the world, and even time. With you start to reconcile your past, present, future, and you begin to sense of, or that timelessness within yourself. So you can be in time and in timelessness, and you have this free flow of movement. How's that sound? Crazy? Possible? Impossible?
In timelessness.
Timelessness.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be destroyed here.
Okay.
I'm always here.
Okay.
Being in the
Yes.
always. Yeah. Actually, being very, very, very present is actually quite timeless, right? Because it's past, present, future all together. To be really present is to be quite timeless, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kirsten says, yeah, that sounds like hard work.
Well, I guess it's opposite.
One moment, okay, say more on that one, yeah.
I wanted to say that whenever we do something that we enjoy, actually is timelessness. And
That's right.
there is no effort there. That's why
That's
I said it's the opposite.
Right. So when we focus on what's the free flow, right? So this is where I'm saying the pathetic self, resilient self are flowing together. Same with your body centers. It's this free flow. If one is feeling weak and the other is strong, then allow the strong center to send its energy over and see how it's received. If it's saying, no, I refuse it, I don't trust it, then go to this center and say, well, what is your natural strength? And have it send it, and then have it watch and say, oh, look, the other center is receiving it, right? So then they're both in a state of resilience. One moment at a time, focus on the enjoyment of the moment. And that makes it easier, and without expectation to accomplish. When we start rushing ourselves to accomplish, we're moving in time, and it's very pixelated time. If we move into what's the enjoyment of the moment now, how am I okay? What am I doing? What am I enjoying? And what am I doing? What is the strength? And how does that feed my well-being? We get into flow, and it becomes easier and easier. And just one thing at a time, one step, one step, one step, and the moments accumulate. So the ego is a very intelligent bitch. That's what Kirsten says. I love that. Yes. Yeah. And in the dreamland, I do just what I want. In reality, it's constant work, being aware of states. All right. So, well, then exercise yourself in dreamland. This is what we teach. It's like rehearse in the dreamland and then bring that out into the real world. Because what you're doing is you're more fluid in dreamland. In the dream state, you're more fluid. Therefore, you can actually start reprogramming yourself, and you can eventually bring that into your more concrete reality, the new behaviors. Again, what's going to transform yourself? Being in a resilient dream state. And that's where we do the work. This is where you do it at work at home, you do it work with your imagination in the armchair, or with a trusted partner, or with your coach or your leader or whatever. But you do it in a nice little closed cocoon state, so you can remain resilient without being overly threatened. And then gradually, you open yourself up to the big bad world. You think of it like planting a seed. It starts to sprout. Be very protective of the new energy. Nurture it, so it grows its roots. It becomes stronger and stronger, and then gradually expose it to the elements, and it becomes a strong, resilient being, strong, resilient plant, right? You don't take a seedling and expose it to all the rain and the wind and the drought and the animals, because it's not resilient enough. It hasn't taken root. So when we're always in a rush for change and transformation, we're actually making it worse on ourselves. All right, let's sum this up. I would love to know what you're taking away as well. So just to be in summary here, each body center has its own unique strength, function, and intelligence. And if you want a variety of answers, then start to communicate with different body centers. Ask the same question to your head, to your throat, to your heart, to your gut, to your groin, to your feet, you will get different answers. So start creating relationship with those different centers. It's a great thing to experiment with. And then our body centers each have their own unique strength, function, and intelligence, and they network together, ideally in a fluid system of cooperation and co-creativity. What the work here is to open the channels, to unblock, all right, where they are competing or shutting themselves off from each other. That's the lifetime work, okay? It is a lifetime of work, all right? Our main center is head, heart, gut. So the head is managing fear, safety, and danger. It's concerned with self-preservation. The heart is managing relationship. It's concerned with connection. It's using emotional energy. The gut center is about drive and power. There's emotions in there too, but those are the lower emotions like desire and anger. Whereas the heart center is about, say, joy, bliss, and love, all right? And the gut is about drive and movement. It's concerned with the environment, mobility. The energy of each center can migrate. So, like, say, the heart energy can migrate to the brain, but it's going to be different, okay? The source of, let's say, if the heart is all about love, connection, well, this is going to be a mental way, an organized way of loving and connecting, or a self-preservation way of loving and connecting, right? So that energy is colored by the function of the center, all right? Or move it down to the gut. I'm using power and control to manage all my relationships, right? Or to love and validate and connect. I'm using control to do that, right? Yeah, Clint's saying, I like that we can ask each center the question to feel what the answer is, and you're going to get different answers from each center. Yes. So it just takes a little bit of quiet work, right, to connect with each and allow things to bubble up, welcome what bubbles up from the center. So even though each center, its energy can migrate and mix with the other centers, remember what the source and origin is so that it is pure. If you're experiencing anger, it's coming from the lower gut. It's not coming from the heart. The heart is borrowing from the anger, okay? The head is borrowing from the anger. The pure source is going to be the gut, right? Because when you get into the pure energy of the anger, you're going to find that it creates motion and mobility, okay? Centers can dominate each other, undermine each other, or compete with each other. They can borrow each other's energy or suppress each other's energy, all right? So what we want is for them to come back into harmony where they are in mutual respect of each other. This is why you need to spend time with each center and appreciate its central function, its source function. Find a way to appreciate it. So create a relationship to power, create a relationship to open-heartedness, create a relationship to mental logic and strategy, create a relationship to higher vision, right? Create a relationship to rootedness, right? And don't judge. Society is telling us what to think about each one. Forget it. Close yourself off from that and find your own natural connection to each center. Then we can open an essential flow of communication between those centers. They can reconcile and cooperate with each other. Right? We can create an essential flow, meaning something of timelessness, permanence, and resilience and fluidity. And lastly, the solar plexus is a place of, let's say, open neutrality where we're experiencing balance and unity. It's also a collection of nerves. It's where all our basic, all our ganglia of nerves are collected here in the solar plexus. They're also collected in our feet. And then we have our whole processing center of the brain. So that's why I'm saying that the sky, the solar plexus, and the earth coordinate with each other. Because if you take one strength and send it into the solar plexus, it can go everywhere in a pure state. Or use the solar plexus as a portal into essence. It's one of the most natural places to enter essence from, that sense of being permanent and timelessness. I'm okay. This is where we restore our vitality and resilience and our autonomy. Essence is a place of truth, and it's free from fear because it is completely connected and omnipresent. And we can circulate that energy throughout our system as a restorative. What are you taking away? I know I gave you a lot of information, and yes, this is all the basic concepts. The courses are teaching you all the practicalities of, well, how do I activate? How do I move it through? How do I get that vertical loop going? How do I even just access essence in itself, right? So that's what the courses do. Module 1 is a wonderful introduction to it. Module 1, revealing essence. And we're going to have that in November. That's going to start in November. Around the 3rd week of November, I am announcing that shortly. You can always email me at info@essence-dynamics.com for more information or to pre-register. And our next webinar is going to be on October 20th. So that's next Wednesday. Transcending guilt, shame, and toxicity. It's all about the games we play for validation, control, but mostly about fragility. How are we aggravating our own fragilities through guilt and shame? And then how are we controlling each other? And how is that becoming toxic? So how do we immunize ourselves from those games? That's what's coming up. Mm-hmm. What are you all taking away? Just to be brief, if anything. What stands out for you?
Well, listening the voice of each center and having some interesting discussions now.
Yeah, what, internally within yourself?
Yes.
Great, yeah. Oh, that's good, yeah. We have a collection of voices, and those voices are centralized in various centers. They're based in different centers. They each have different perceptions. One thing we teach in the module 4 then is how do you get each center activated? How do you send from each center? That will shift your relationship to the other person or the situation. And then how do you freely shift? Right? It's so and how do you get it all coordinated and working together so that then you have even more options and choices in a situation, and you really are thinking creatively on your feet and being very, very adaptable because you are freely switching your centers as you come through, and it becomes very, very easy to quickly adapt and be creative in the situation. We call that creating a horizontal loop of energy with a movable center, and we learn that in module 4, which is coming out in the spring. So I'll offer module 1 in November around the 3rd week, and then around the beginning of December as well. And then we'll do modules 2 and 3 in January, February, and module 4 probably March, April. That's the plan I've got so far. And for those of you that have already taken the courses, please come and assist. And if and also tell your friends, come take these courses, at least module 1. And we're going to have friendly times for Europe and North America. I'm now going to reformat it into shorter sessions over about 4, maybe 5 days, but at a central time so that North America and Europe can both take the course together. Okay. So because before it wasn't very friendly for North America, we were starting way too early and going way too long. So. Mm-hmm. Each course is about 23 hours. It's 23 hours worth. So about 4 days of session work and then a 5th day of follow-up work. Clint, Kirsten, anything left to say on what you take away? Or just a thumbs up?
No, all good. It's a cool reminder. I refound some thoughts.
I hope it gives you some inspiration.
Yep.
Okay. All right. All right. And for anyone else, right? Yes. Clint says thanks. This was a great session to get to know the energy centers. Yeah. So if anyone has questions, feel free to email me, Troy@essence-dynamics.com or info@ essence-dynamics.com. It goes to the same place. Visit the website to get to know the courses more. You can read course descriptions there. I don't have any information on Module 4 up yet. That's coming soon. Go to the YouTube channel and subscribe there and watch all our featured webinars. And when you take the courses, you get access to a whole other collection of tutorials and webinars as well. So that's the advantage of taking the courses. You get practice and supervision, plus a whole library. And until then, enjoy getting to know your energy centers, as well as get to know how they communicate. And remember these basic questions of how am I, despite all, how am I okay? What am I enjoying in this moment? How does that feed my well-being? That helps calm you down. What feels permanent and timeless within me. So until next time, be creative, be radiant, be brilliant, be resilient, and most of all, enjoy.